Close your eyes and let us travel back, far beyond the borders of memory, into the cradle of civilization itself. The story you are about to hear was already ancient when the pyramids were young. It comes from the land between two rivers, Mesopotamia, where clay tablets were pressed with reeds and left to dry under the sun, holding words that would outlast the empires of kings. This is the story of Gilgamesh, the mighty king of Uruk, a man 2/3 divine and 1/3 mortal, who carved his name into the stones of eternity. Tonight, we will walk with him, through triumph and grief, through friendship and loss, through the questions that have haunted humankind since the beginning. What does it mean to live? What does it mean to die? And can anyone escape the hand of fate? The Epic of Gilgamesh is not only a tale of warriors and gods, but also a meditation on life itself. It is a lullaby of stone and clay, sung by voices long turned to dust. Let us begin slowly, drifting into the dawn of the world's first city, and fall asleep to the rise and fall of the world's first hero. 1. In the Fertile Crescent, where rivers nourish the soil and reeds whisper in the breeze, rises the walled city of Uruk. Imagine it now under the Mesopotamian sun, massive walls gleaming with baked clay bricks, markets alive with traders of grain, lapis lazuli, and incense, priests guiding chants in temple courtyards, and above all, the ziggurat of Anu, its terraces reaching toward the heavens. At the heart of Uruk stands its king, Gilgamesh, towering above other men, with strength gifted by the gods themselves. He is 2/3 divine, yet the 1/3 of him that is mortal will one day bind him to the fate of all humankind. Gilgamesh rules not gently. His vigor is unchecked, his desire boundless. He demands too much of his people. Sons taken from their fathers, daughters claimed from their mothers. The walls of Uruk are mighty, but within them the people groan under the burden of their king. They cry out to the gods for relief, begging that someone might temper his power, someone who could stand as his equal. The gods hear, they gather in council, their voices echoing like thunder across the heavens. To answer the cries, they decide to fashion a rival, a balance, a mirror of the king's strength. From the clay of the wilderness, they mold Enkidu, a man of raw power, covered in hair, roaming with the beasts, drinking from their water holes. Enkidu is not polished by city walls or temple rites. He is the untamed echo of humankind's earliest state, free and fierce as the wilderness itself. For a time, Enkidu lives among gazelles, wrestles lions, and pulls down hunters' traps. But word of him spreads, and soon Uruk learns of this wild man. To draw him toward civilization, a temple harlot named Shamhat is sent to the wilderness. She meets Enkidu by the water's edge, and through her embrace, she awakens him to the ways of humankind. For 6 days and 7 nights they remain together, until Enkidu finds that the animals now shy away from him. He is no longer of the wilderness. He has crossed a threshold, his spirit pulled toward the city of men. Shamhat guides him, teaching him to eat bread, to drink wine, to wear garments of wool. Enkidu learns language, manners, the rhythms of life within walls, yet in his heart remains a primal force, a strength unshaped, waiting for its test. And so he walks with Shamhat toward Uruk. The city of Uruk thrums with life, yet beneath its surface a tension builds. The king, Gilgamesh, still walks in restless might, demanding from his people what no mortal ruler should demand. His arrogance spreads like a shadow across the streets, and the cries of his subjects rise once more toward the heavens. But this time, the gods have already set in motion their answer. From the wilderness, Enkidu approaches, guided by Shamhat, still half wild, his strength untested within walls, his eyes unaccustomed to the sight of towers and temples gleaming in the sun. Word reaches Gilgamesh that a giant of the steppe, a man shaped by the gods themselves, has entered the city. The king, accustomed to seeing none equal to his stature, feels his pride flare. He resolves to meet this stranger not with welcome, but with challenge. The people, weary of their king's unchecked will, whisper hope. Perhaps at last someone can confront Gilgamesh, someone who will teach him restraint. The two men meet not in quiet diplomacy, but in the streets of Uruk, before the very gates of the temple where Gilgamesh often asserts his authority. Enkidu blocks the way, his frame vast, his eyes burning with primal fire. Gilgamesh, broad-shouldered, godlike in bearing, advances with the certainty of one who has never been refused. Their gazes lock, each recognizing in the other a force equal to his own. And then they clash. The earth shakes beneath their struggle. Stones crack, doorways splinter, the walls of Uruk echo with the thunder of their combat. Enkidu grips Gilgamesh's arms with the strength of the wild. Gilgamesh answers with the power of a king who has never yielded. Dust rises, people gather, voices cry out, for never before has such a contest unfolded within the city's streets. They grapple, push, and strain, two titans wrestling for more than dominance. They wrestle for balance, for destiny. The fight is long, neither yielding, each testing the other's strength. Yet slowly, through the exhaustion of struggle, something else begins to stir. In the press of hand against hand, in the mirrored power of muscle and spirit, each sees not merely a rival, but a reflection. Gilgamesh, who has always ruled without equal, discovers at last the feel of resistance. Enkidu, who has known only beasts and solitude, discovers the weight of a man who matches him fully. The struggle breaks not with defeat, but with recognition. Breathless, they pause. Gilgamesh laughs first, his pride disarmed not by victory, but by the joy of meeting a true equal. Enkidu, though fierce, feels the warmth of this laughter, and his wildness bends into camaraderie. They clasp each other's shoulders, no longer as enemies, but as brothers newly found. The people of Uruk watch in awe. What began as fear of destruction turns into celebration. For the king, once alone in his might, has now found a companion strong enough to guide him, to temper him. Enkidu, once wild and aimless, has now found a friend whose destiny is woven with his own. From that day forward, Gilgamesh and Enkidu are inseparable. They walk the streets of Uruk side by side, one born of the city, one born of the steppe, their laughter and their plans carrying like sunlight through the once oppressed city. Together, they dream of great deeds, for the strength within them demands expression. It is not enough to live quietly. They feel the hunger of heroes, the pull of legend, and so their eyes turn outward, toward challenges that lie beyond the city walls. It is in this bond that the epic takes root, for friendship has transformed them both. Gilgamesh, once arrogant and unchecked, now shares his path with one who can question him, steady him, walk beside him without fear. Enkidu, once untamed and unknowing of human bonds, now learns the richness of brotherhood, the joy of laughter, the comfort of a voice that says, "I understand you." In the clay tablets, the scribes pressed with careful hand the truth of this moment. The wild man and the king became one heart. It is in their unity that the great journeys of the Epic of Gilgamesh begin. And like all true friendships, it will prove both a blessing and a wound, a gift that teaches joy and sorrow, courage and grief. For in loving deeply, one also learns how deep loss can cut. But for now, the story rests on the joy of new brotherhood. Gilgamesh and Enkidu, side by side, gaze beyond Uruk's towering walls. Ahead waits the cedar forest, the lair of Humbaba, the guardian whom even the gods respect. Their bond, still fresh, is about to be tested in the fires of their first great quest. The journey into the cedar forest and the battle with Humbaba Uruk grew brighter in the days that followed the birth of friendship. The people no longer whispered in fear of their king. They sang, for Gilgamesh had changed. He no longer walked as a tyrant above his people, but as a man who had found an equal, a companion to steady his heart. Enkidu, once wild among the beasts, now knew the weight and the comfort of brotherhood. Yet two men of such strength could not remain idle within city walls. Their hearts burned for deeds, their spirits longed for adventure. It was Gilgamesh who spoke first, his eyes alight with restless fire. "Brother," he said to Enkidu, "let us go into the cedar forest. There dwells Humbaba, the guardian set by Enlil himself. He is terror, he is storm, and none dare face him. But if we strike him down, if we cut the cedars and bring their sacred wood back to Uruk, our names will shine forever. The world will know us as more than kings and hunters. We will be legend." Enkidu trembled. He knew the forest. He had wandered its edges as a wild man, and he had heard Humbaba's roar carried by the wind. "Gilgamesh," he pleaded, "Humbaba is no mere beast. His breath is fire, his shout splits mountains, his very gaze withers flesh. He is the servant of Enlil, lord of earth and sky. To face him is to invite death." But Gilgamesh's resolve did not waver. "We are not made to live and die unseen, brother. I will not wait for old age to erase me. Better to fall in battle with a name that will endure than to fade into dust forgotten. If we triumph, our glory will echo through all ages. If we die, at least we will die as men who dared." Enkidu bowed his head. He knew his friend's spirit could not be turned aside, and friendship bound him. He would not let Gilgamesh walk into danger alone. "Then I go with you," he said, though fear weighed on his voice. The city prepared for their quest. Great axes of bronze were forged, swords of shining iron, shields as broad as doors. The clang of hammers rang through Uruk as craftsmen armed their king and his companion. The people gathered, anxious and proud, to see their champions march. Before leaving, Gilgamesh went to the temple of his mother, the goddess Ninsun. She prayed to Shamash, the sun god, asking his blessing. "Guide my son," she whispered, "and the wild one who walks with him. Be their light in the darkness, their breath in the storm." Then she placed her hands upon Enkidu's shoulders and called him her own son, adopting him with divine blessing, binding him forever into the family of Gilgamesh. At dawn, the two heroes set out. They crossed wide plains, drank from rivers that glittered like silver, and at night lay beneath the stars. In dreams, Gilgamesh saw omens, mountains collapsing, flames engulfing the earth, storms that roared with Humbaba's voice. He woke trembling, but Enkidu calmed him. "Dreams warn of trials, brother, but Shamash walks with us. Have courage, and we will prevail." At last, the cedar forest rose before them, trees vast and towering, their branches blotting out the sun, their roots coiled deep in the dark. Entering its shadows felt like stepping into another world. The air was heavy, thick with the breath of something watching. And then he came. Humbaba, the guardian, strode forth. His body was immense, his face a shifting mask of beast and storm. Fire flickered in his eyes, and when he exhaled, the air itself seemed to burn. His voice was thunder, his roar a force that bent trees and sent birds screaming from the canopy. Gilgamesh faltered for a moment at the sight, but Enkidu seized his arm. "Together," he cried, "we stand together." The battle shook the forest. Gilgamesh swung his great axe, the clash of bronze against flesh echoing like bells. Enkidu struck with his sword, circling like a hunting lion. Humbaba fought with the strength of the earth, uprooting trees to hurl them like javelins, shaking the ground with every step. The forest itself trembled with his fury. Gilgamesh called to Shamash, And the sun god answered. Winds rose, rushing into the forest, blinding Humbaba's eyes, forcing him back. Seizing the moment, the two friends pressed forward. Enkidu lunged, pinning the guardian's arm. While Gilgamesh raised his axe high, with one mighty stroke, he struck down Humbaba. The great roar of the monster rang out, echoing through the cedar trunks until it faded into silence. The forest grew still, its guardian fallen. The towering trees stood like solemn witnesses, their shadows long, their silence heavy. Gilgamesh and Enkidu stood breathless, their armor scarred, their hands stained, and then laughter burst from their throats. They had done the impossible. They had slain Humbaba, the terror of gods and men. Their bond, tested in battle, was now forged unbreakable. Yet in the silence of the cedar forest, something darker lingered. For to strike down the servant of the gods is not only triumph, it is defiance. And the gods, though silent now, had seen. Ishtar, the bull of heaven, and the god's judgment Uruk rang with triumph. The cedar wood from the great forest now lay stacked within its walls, ready to build gates and temples. The people praised their king, not only for his strength, but for the bond that bound him to Enkidu, the wild man-made brother. Songs rose on every street, the names of Gilgamesh and Enkidu carved not only in stone, but in memory. For a time, all seemed well, but when victory echoes too loudly, the heavens cannot help but listen. Among those who watched from on high was Ishtar, goddess of love and war. She gazed upon Gilgamesh, whose beauty shone with the glow of divinity, whose fame spread farther than the Tigris or the Euphrates, whose courage had made even Humbaba fall. Desire stirred in her heart, fierce and consuming. She descended to Uruk in splendor, clothed in jewels that flashed like stars, her voice sweet as honey, her presence terrible as the storm. Before all the city she spoke, "Gilgamesh, be my husband. Let me crown you with riches, grant you a chariot of gold pulled by storm winds. Kings and princes shall kneel at your feet, nations shall bow to your rule. With me beside you, power beyond measure will be yours." The people trembled, for to refuse a goddess was peril. Yet Gilgamesh did not hesitate. His voice rang clear, his eyes hard with truth. "You ask me to be your husband? You, whose love has destroyed every man who trusted you? Where is Tammuz, your first love, now condemned to the underworld? Where is the shepherd you transformed into a wolf, the stallion you crippled, the lion you struck down? Your lovers find only death in your arms. I will not join them. I will not become another victim of your cruelty." Uruk fell silent. To speak thus to Ishtar was more dangerous than any battle. Rage twisted the goddess's beauty into something dreadful. Her cry split the air as she rose into the heavens, her fury like fire upon the wind. Before Anu, her father, she fell weeping. "Father, Gilgamesh has insulted me. He has spat upon my love and shamed me before mortals. Give me the bull of heaven, that I may punish him. Let it trample Uruk, let it drink the rivers dry, let it tear down his walls." Anu hesitated. "If I give you the bull, 7 years of famine will follow. The earth will wither, the people will starve." But Ishtar's rage was beyond reason. "If you refuse me, I will break down the gates of the underworld itself. I will free the dead to devour the living until the cries of the earth rise louder than the heavens." And so Anu yielded. He released the bull of heaven, and the beast descended upon Uruk. The ground split where its hooves struck. Chasms opened, swallowing hundreds of men. Fields turned to dust, rivers shrank, and walls crumbled beneath its terrible strength. Its bellow was thunder, its breath a scorching wind. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu did not run. Together they faced the bull. Enkidu seized its horns, holding fast, though the beast thrashed like a storm. Gilgamesh, swift and fearless, struck with his sword, blow after blow. The bull reared, trying to crush them, but Enkidu gripped its tail with all his might, dragging it low. With one final cry, Gilgamesh drove his blade deep. The bull shuddered, roared, and fell, its breath scattering into the dust of the plain. The people shouted in joy, but beneath their celebration lingered dread. For to kill the bull of heaven was not only victory, it was sacrilege. Upon the walls, Ishtar shrieked her fury. She cursed them, tore at her hair, and vowed vengeance. Enkidu, reckless and unafraid, ripped the thigh of the bull and hurled it at her. The crowd gasped at such defiance, at the insult hurled straight into the face of a goddess, and the gods above gathered in council. Their voices were grave, their judgment swift. "They have slain Humbaba, guardian of the forest. They have slaughtered the bulls of heaven. Their power grows too great, their pride too dangerous. One of them must die." The decree was made. The balance of heaven and earth demanded it. And the lot fell not on Gilgamesh, the king beloved of his people, but on Enkidu, the wild man, the brother, the friend. The heroes did not yet know the sentence written upon them. They still walked the streets of Uruk together, still laughed in the glow of victory. But already, in the silence between their laughter, the shadow of death followed, waiting for its hour. The death of Enkidu and the grief of Gilgamesh, the laughter of victory did not last. Not long after the slaying of the bull of heaven, Enkidu was struck by a dream, a vision dark and heavy, sent by the gods themselves. He awoke trembling, his breath short, his heart heavy as stone. "Brother," he said to Gilgamesh, "last night I dreamed the gods sat in council, Anu, Enlil, Shamash, and Ea. They spoke of us, of Humbaba, of the bull we struck down. Their judgment was sealed, one of us must die. And the fate has fallen upon me." Gilgamesh's face turned pale, his voice rising in protest. "No, you are my friend, my other self. The gods cannot take you, they cannot tear from me the one who is my strength, my joy." But the words were powerless, for fate once spoken by the gods is a wall no man can climb. Soon, sickness fell upon Enkidu. His body, once strong as the wild beasts, grew weak. At his limbs that had wrestled lions and gripped the bull of heaven trembled like dry reeds. Fever burned him. Visions tormented him. He cried out in anguish, cursing the day he was lured from the wilderness. "Why was I brought from the steppe? Why did I leave the company of the gazelles, the wild waters where I drank freely? Shamhat, who tamed me, why did you draw me into the city? Now I will die like any other man, forgotten in dust." But even in his fury, Enkidu knew love. As death approached, his heart softened. He blessed Shamhat for showing him bread and wine, for giving him friendship. And he wept for Gilgamesh, who knelt beside him, clutching his hand. For 12 days the sickness lingered. On the final day, Enkidu's breath grew shallow. His eyes turned toward his brother. "Do not forget me, Gilgamesh. Remember me when you walk in the cedar forests, when you sit upon your throne, when your hand holds the sword. Let my name not fade from your lips." Gilgamesh wept. He pressed his forehead to Enkidu's chest, but already the heartbeat had grown faint. And then it ceased. The wild man, the friend, the brother, was gone. The cry of Gilgamesh rose over Uruk like a storm. He covered his hair with dust, tore his robes, wandered the streets in despair. "Enkidu, my brother, my friend, why did they take you? The darkness has swallowed you, and I am left alone. Shall I not die as well? Am I no different from you? Must I too descend to the house of dust, where all men go?" Grief consumed him. By day he refused food. By night he wandered outside the city gates, searching for his friend's shadow. He touched his face, his skin, and whispered, "Am I not mortal also? One day this flesh will fail. One day worms will claim me as they now claim Enkidu. What then is the meaning of kingship, of walls, of temples, if death takes all?" He ordered a great funeral for Enkidu. The streets of Uruk filled with lamentation. The people wept, the priests sang dirges, offerings were laid upon the bier. Gilgamesh himself carried precious gifts to place upon his friend. Gold, lapis lazuli, vessels of bronze, all that might honor the dead. He called upon the mountains, the forests, the rivers to mourn. He summoned the beasts of the steppe, the lions, the gazelles, the panthers, to howl in grief, for Enkidu had once been one of them. When the rites were complete and the earth closed over his brother, Gilgamesh could not rest. His grief transformed into terror, terror of his own mortality. If Enkidu, strong and fierce, beloved of the gods, could fall to death, what hope was left for him? "Death has taken my brother," he cried, "and it will come for me. But I will not wait in silence. I will seek the secret of life. I will find Utnapishtim, the one who survived the great flood, the one to whom the gods granted immortality. I will walk the ends of the earth if I must. I will not stop until I know whether man can escape the darkness that claims us all." And so Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, set aside his throne. With hair unkempt, clothed in skins, his eyes burning with sorrow and resolve, he left the city walls behind. He became a wanderer, a seeker. No longer was he simply a mighty king. He was a man who had lost his friend and now feared the fate that waits for all. The death of Enkidu was the death of Gilgamesh's old self, and what lay ahead was a journey through deserts and mountains, across seas and shadows, to ask the question no man had dared to ask: can life defy death? the journey through the mountains, and the meeting with Utnapishtim Gilgamesh left Uruk behind him, the mighty walls he had once built, the temples that gleamed in the sun, the throne upon which he had ruled with pride. All of it meant nothing now. His hair was unkempt, his robe torn, his body clothed in skins. He walked like a man possessed, haunted by the image of his fallen friend. Each step was a question if Enkidu, strong as the wild and brave as the storm, could die. Then what is left for me? Must I too be swallowed by silence? He wandered through deserts where the wind was a knife. He crossed barren plains where no water flowed, where the sun burned like a merciless fire. He passed mountains whose peaks tore the clouds. Wherever he went, he asked the same question of shepherds, of ferrymen, of strangers by the road. Where is Utnapishtim, the one who survived the great flood, the one who was granted eternal life? Most turned their faces away, for to speak of immortality was to invite the jealousy of the gods. But whispers guided him onward. At last he came to the twin mountains called Mashu, whose peaks reached the very vault of heaven and whose roots plunged deep into the underworld. At their gates stood scorpion men, guardians of the rising and setting sun. Their faces were fearsome, their gaze a burning fire. When Gilgamesh approached, even his mighty heart faltered, but he did not turn back. One scorpion man spoke, his voice like the grinding of stone. "Who are you, mortal? Who dares come here? No man may enter these mountains. Beyond lies the path of the sun, a tunnel of endless night." Gilgamesh bowed his head. "I am Gilgamesh of Uruk. My brother Enkidu is dead, and sorrow has consumed me. I seek Utnapishtim, who was granted life everlasting. Tell me, how may I find him? For I will not rest until I know whether man may escape death." The scorpion man gazed upon him, and though his eyes were flames, his heart softened. "Your journey is perilous, King of Uruk. The path through these mountains is 12 leagues of darkness, where no light shines, where no man may breathe without despair. Few would endure. Yet I see determination in you that cannot be turned aside. Go then, but know that if you falter, no god will save you." Gilgamesh entered the tunnel. Darkness swallowed him whole. For 12 leagues he walked, blind, stumbling, his breath ragged, his heart pounding. Time lost its meaning. Just as despair was about to claim him, light burst forth. He stepped into a garden by the sea, a place where trees bore jewels instead of fruit. Lapis lazuli for leaves, carnelian for blossoms, rubies and pearls glistening in the branches. The air was heavy with wonder, but Gilgamesh did not pause to admire it. His heart drove him forward still. By the shore he found Siduri, a woman of wisdom, keeper of a tavern at the edge of the world. She saw the weariness in him and asked, "Why do you wander, Gilgamesh? Why do you wear skins? Why is sorrow written across your face?" "I seek eternal life," he answered. "I have seen my friend die, and I know I too shall fall, but I cannot accept it. Tell me where to find Utnapishtim, that I may learn the secret of immortality." Siduri shook her head gently. "Gilgamesh, no man can escape death. Enjoy the bread, drink the wine, love the wife who lies in your arms. These are the gifts of life. Do not chase what the gods have hidden." But Gilgamesh would not listen. His grief had hardened into resolve. Siduri, seeing that she could not turn him aside, directed him to Urshanabi, the ferryman of Utnapishtim. Urshanabi stood by the shore, his boat resting on the waters of deathly silence. Gilgamesh demanded passage. At first the ferryman resisted, but the king's sorrow burned like fire. At last, Urshanabi agreed to guide him. They cut poles from the forest, for the waters they must cross could not be touched by mortal hands. For many days they pushed through the sea of death, the waters thick and dark, where no bird flew, where no breeze stirred. When the final pole was spent, Gilgamesh's own hands grasped the oar, and so he rowed himself to the far shore where Utnapishtim dwelled. There he found the man he had sought, not a god, but a mortal like himself, yet ageless, untouched by decay. His hair was white, his face calm, his eyes weary from centuries of memory. Gilgamesh fell before him and cried, "Tell me, Utnapishtim, how did you find life eternal? How may I too escape death? For my brother is gone, and I fear the same fate." Utnapishtim regarded him long, then sighed. "Gilgamesh, why do you chase the wind? No man can escape death. The gods keep life for themselves, and they have allotted mortality to mankind. But since you have come this far, I will tell you my story. The story of the great flood, and how I alone was spared." And so, upon the shore at the edge of the world, the ancient survivor prepared to reveal a tale as old as the earth itself. The story of the flood, the plant of life, and the final lesson. Utnapishtim looked into the face of Gilgamesh, and his eyes were heavy with memory. "Listen well, O King of Uruk," he said, "for what I will tell you is no fable. It is the truth the gods themselves once spoke. If you seek to know why I live beyond the years of men, then hear the story of the great flood." His voice grew low, like the murmur of waves against a shore. "In ancient days, the gods sat in council. The earth was loud with the cries of mankind, and the gods grew restless at the clamor. Enlil, lord of storms, resolved to silence the world with a flood that would sweep away all living things. But Ea, god of wisdom, spoke to me in secret. He whispered through the walls of my house, warning me of what was to come. 'Man of Shuruppak,' he said, 'tear down your house, build a boat, abandon your wealth, save your life. Bring aboard the seed of all living creatures. Make the boat strong, roof it as the firmament is roofed, so that it may withstand the fury of the storm.' I obeyed. I built the boat as he commanded, its sides high, its beams sealed with pitch. I gathered my family, my craftsmen, the beasts of the field, and the animals of the wild. The sky darkened, clouds rolled like mountains. At the appointed hour, the rains fell. The waters rose from the deep, and the flood covered the face of the earth. For 6 days and 7 nights the storm raged, tearing mountains apart, drowning even the gods in their fear. On the 7th day, silence fell. The waters lay flat as glass. I opened a window. All was sea, no man remained. The earth had become an endless horizon of water. At last, the boat rested upon Mount Nisr. There I loosed a dove, but it found no resting place, and returned. I loosed a swallow, but it too returned. At last, I sent forth a raven. It did not return, for it had found dry land. Then I made sacrifice to the gods. The sweet smoke rose, and the gods gathered around like flies. Enlil, who had decreed the flood, grew furious that some had survived. But Ea reproached him, and in the end, they relented. Enlil touched me and my wife, blessing us, granting that we should live apart from mankind, never knowing death, dwelling at the edge of the world. Utnapishtim's eyes turned to Gilgamesh. So now you know, my life is not a gift to be repeated. It is mine alone, granted once. You cannot have it. You too must face death, but I will give you a chance. If you can conquer sleep, perhaps you may conquer death. Gilgamesh agreed, though his body was weary from his long journey. He sat upon the shore, determined to keep his eyes open. But the weight of grief, of travel, of sorrow pressed down. 1 day passed, then another, until 7 had gone. All the while, Gilgamesh slept. Utnapishtim's wife baked bread each day and laid it beside him, proof of his failure. When Gilgamesh awoke, he saw the loaves hardened by time, and he knew he had failed even to defeat sleep. Broken-hearted, he begged once more. Utnapishtim's wife, moved by pity, whispered to her husband, "Tell him of the plant that grows beneath the sea, thorny to the touch, but it restores youth to any who eat it." So Utnapishtim revealed the secret. Gilgamesh tied heavy stones to his feet and plunged into the waters. Deep he swam until his hands touched the plant. He cut it free and rose again, triumphant. Holding the plant in his hands, he laughed. "This is no immortality, but it will renew youth. I will take it back to Uruk. The old men shall eat of it and be young again, and I too will taste it. Our strength will not fade." With joy in his heart, he began the journey home. But fate had yet one more lesson. One night, weary from travel, Gilgamesh bathed in a cool spring. While he rested, a serpent crept near, drawn by the scent of the plant. The snake seized it and ate, shedding its skin as it slithered away, reborn and renewed. When Gilgamesh returned, the plant was gone. His heart sank like stone. He wept, not with the grief of rage, but with the sorrow of understanding. For Enkidu I grieved. For myself I sought eternity. But it is not mine to have. The snake has taken the gift, and man is left with death. At last he returned to Uruk. He climbed its mighty walls, the walls his own hands had built. He walked their length, gazing at the city that had always been his, and he understood. This is my immortality. The walls of Uruk, the temples, the gardens, the laughter of my people, the songs of their voices, these will outlast me. These will carry my name. It is not eternal life the gods have given us, but the chance to leave behind something greater than ourselves. And so Gilgamesh, who had sought to conquer death, learned instead to live with it. His grief for Enkidu never vanished, but it became a stone upon which wisdom was built. The epic closes not with immortality seized, but with mortality embraced. The king of Uruk stood upon his walls, gazing at the city in the light of the setting sun, and for the first time, he was at peace. Closing reflection and lullaby of the ages. The sun sank low over Uruk. Its golden light spilled across the city walls, turning the bricks to fire, the towers to amber. From the fields, the voices of workers drifted back, soft and human, like the heartbeat of the land. Gilgamesh stood atop the ramparts, his gaze stretched over everything he had once taken for granted. Temples rising in solemn majesty, gardens breathing green, the Euphrates winding like a ribbon of silver. Once he had thought only of glory. Once he had dreamed of conquering the gods, of striking down monsters, of seizing immortality. But now, after all his journeys, after the death of his brother, after the long road through desert and mountain, through darkness and sea, he saw with new eyes. Life was not in the cedar forest, nor in the hidden plant beneath the sea. It was here, in the voices of his people, in the laughter of children, in the hands that shaped clay into brick, in the songs sung at dawn and dusk. Life was in every fleeting breath, every mortal heartbeat, fragile yet shining. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Enkidu, my brother, though you are gone, you live in me still. You live in the memory of our battles, in the bond we shared, in the lessons you gave me. Death may take us, but it cannot take love. And love is the true immortality." The night fell. Stars blossomed above Uruk, countless and eternal. And beneath them, the city breathed, alive and enduring. Gilgamesh descended from the walls, no longer restless, no longer consumed by grief, but carrying peace within him. He would live, he would rule, he would build, and his story would be sung long after his flesh returned to dust. And so the epic ends, as all epics must, not with eternal life seized from the gods, but with the eternal truth that mortality gives life its meaning. Gilgamesh sought to escape death, and found instead the wisdom of living fully, of cherishing what cannot last. Now as you lit and let his story settle into your heart like a gentle tide, close your eyes and let the echoes of Mesopotamia fade into silence. Imagine the walls of Uruk standing tall under starlight, the voice of Gilgamesh carried softly by the wind. Sleep, as the heroes of old now sleep. Rest as Enkidu rests beneath the earth. Dream, as Gilgamesh once dreamed of cedar forests and shining rivers. For in dreams too, stories live forever. And when morning comes, let your heart remember. Life is precious because it ends. And in love, in friendship, in the works of our hands, we leave behind our own immortality. was his legacy. His story would endure not because he lived forever, but because he built, because he loved, because he was remembered. This is the lesson whispered to us. Across 5 thou, the echo of Gilgamesh. The tale of Gilgamesh does not end with the closing of a tablet, nor with the silence that followed his last breath. Stories such as his do not belong to one age or one people. They stretch like rivers, carrying voices through centuries, reshaping themselves, yet always flowing from the same source. His grief, his triumphs, his desperate search for meaning. These are not the concerns of kings alone. They are the birthright of every human being who has ever lived, and of every human being yet to come. Long after Uruk's walls had cracked beneath the sun, and the sands of Mesopotamia had swallowed its streets, the clay tablets endured. Buried beneath earth and time, they slept while empires rose and fell, while languages shifted and vanished, while new gods claimed the prayers of men. Yet when they were uncovered again, when scholars brushed dust from their marks and traced the wedge-shaped letters, Gilgamesh rose once more, alive in the rhythm of words. He had walked the deserts. He had faced Humbaba, the bull, the flood, the serpent. He had grieved, and he had wept. And through all of this, he had learned what it meant to be mortal. That lesson did not fade with the collapse of his city. It lingered, waiting to speak again when the tablets were read, when his name was whispered. And so Gilgamesh continues. The timelessness of grief. The first echo of Gilgamesh is grief. It is the echo of Enkidu's death, the cry of a man broken by loss. No matter how many thousands of years separate us from that moment, the sound of it remains familiar. For who among us has not wept at the grave of a friend? Who has not felt the unbearable weight of silence where once there was laughter? Gilgamesh's lament for Enkidu rises like wind across time. Must I too die? Am I no different from him? These questions are not relics of clay. They are questions that live in every heart. Each of us at some point turns to face the truth that one day those we love will be gone, and so will we. And yet, in grief, there is also a strange kind of beauty. The sorrow of Gilgamesh shows us the depth of his love. Without love, grief cannot exist. Enkidu's absence was terrible, precisely because his presence had been so powerful. Their friendship was a fire that burned so brightly that even death could not erase its light. Thus the story teaches, love is the measure of life. To love is to open oneself to grief, but it is also to open oneself to immortality. For though Enkidu's body returned to dust, his memory has lived for millennia through Gilgamesh's tears. The timelessness of fear. The second echo is fear, the fear of death. When Gilgamesh wandered deserts and mountains, he was not merely seeking Utnapishtim, he was seeking an answer to the question that haunts every soul. What awaits us at the end? He feared the silence, the darkness, the house of dust where all men go. He feared the withering of his body, the fading of his name. And so he sought to break the rule that binds all flesh. But in his fear, he revealed our shared humanity. For even the strongest, even the half-divine, cannot look upon death without trembling. His fear is our own fear. His desperate quest is our own quest, whether we chase it in legends, in philosophies, or in quiet moments of prayer. The story comforts us by admitting the truth. Even heroes tremble. Even kings cry out. And if Gilgamesh himself could be afraid, then our own fears do not make us weak. They make us human. The timelessness of wisdom. The third echo is wisdom, the wisdom he finally gained. Gilgamesh did not find eternal life in Utnapishtim's tale, nor in the plant of renewal stolen by the serpent. But he found something greater, the understanding that immortality lies not in the body, but in what we leave behind. Standing upon the walls of Uruk, he looked at the city with new eyes. The towers, the temples, the laughter of the people, all of this sand years. Our lives are brief, but they are not meaningless. Every act of kindness, every bond of friendship, every wall we build with our hands or with our hearts, these are the echoes that remain. The echo, across ages. From Mesopotamia, the story traveled. It was told in Babylonian courts, in Assyrian palaces. It was etched upon clay and sung by storytellers. Later, fragments of it echoed in other tales. The flood that recalls Noah, the search for wisdom that recalls Odysseus, the grief that recalls Achilles. Gilgamesh's shadow falls across the epics of the world, for he is the first hero, and his story is the first great song of humanity. Even today, when we read the tablets or hear the tale, we are linked to those ancient listeners who once sat beneath starlight by the Euphrates, hearing a bard chant the words. Their hearts beat as ours do now. Their questions were the same, and in this way, the story bridges the distance between ages, teaching us that we are not so different from those who lived and died thousands of years before us. The personal echo. But beyond the grand sweep of history, the epic of Gilgamesh whispers to each of us personally. It asks, what is your Uruk? What walls are you building that will outlast you? Who is your Enkidu, the one whose friendship gives meaning to your days? What plant of life do you chase, and what serpent might take it from you? It is in these questions that the epic becomes more than story. It becomes mirror. To listen to Gilgamesh is to look inward, and in looking inward, we find ourselves. A lullaby of legacy. Now let the echoes of Gilgamesh soften in your mind. Imagine the walls of Uruk beneath the stars. Imagine Gilgamesh standing upon them, no longer raging, no longer restless, but calm. He has returned from deserts and seas, from dreams and terrors, and he has laid down his search. He has learned that it is enough to live, to love, to build, to remember. And so he whispers to us across time, live well, for your days are numbered. Love deeply, for love is stronger than death. Build wisely, for what you build may stand when you are gone. And rest, for rest is part of life's rhythm. These words, though ancient, are like a lullaby. They soothe the restless heart. They quiet the fear that beats beneath our ribs. They remind us that, though we cannot hold eternity, we can hold one another, and that is enough. The echo in sleep now. As the story drifts towards silence, let yourself drift as well. Breathe slowly, as if you are walking with Gilgamesh beneath the night sky. Feel the stars above you, vast and eternal, shining as they shone over Mesopotamia long ago. Let Enkidu's laughter linger in your ears, a memory of friendship that will never fade. Let Gilgamesh's wisdom rest in your heart, a gentle truth that you carry with you. And sleep. Sleep as the heroes of old now sleep. Sleep as the rivers sleep beneath the moon, as the cedars sleep in the night air. Sleep knowing that you, too, are part of this ancient echo. Your life, a verse in the song that has been sung since the first dawn. The epic of Gilgamesh ends, but the echo continues. In your dreams, in your breath, in the quiet heartbeat of the world. Rest now,